Hello and welcome back to my channel, and we rejoin our characters in the Green Dragon Inn. It is quite a night, it's Saturday night. The atmosphere is mounting. Roland and the boys are playing some tunes. The patrons are packing themselves in. It is a very busy and there's a real hubbub in the place. To really just kind of recap on the situation, our characters are sitting at the middle table. We have Anarion, Adelind, Dagobert, Tristan, and Lindris. They have recently just received some information from Fredigar, our landlord, that there's a terrible crime has been committed. As a quick recap, this involved a paladin who was escorting some pilgrims to a shrine, the shrine of Saint Alara, and they had been attacked and robbed by a group of brigands or robbers or outlaws or whatever nondescript name you want to bring. These had taken the offerings and the ties, and most importantly, a relic that these pilgrims had been transporting to the shrine and to give to the chapter head. And they were stripped and tied to trees while the laughing outlaws headed back to the military road and up towards Marchton. They saw the assailants were all hooded, so they could not see the identity. And this terrible crime has been relayed to the Green Dragon just recently by a patrol, and our crack investigator Halas, has been alerted, and he is out and about in the Green Dragon, following up a line of inquiries. He represents the Marchton end of the investigation. He does have a colleague in Wayford who is also pursuing a similar line of inquiry. They are going to have a rendezvous later on in a day or two to compare notes and see if there's any leads, and maybe organise some form of retribution for the outlaws with some form of posse or military operation. So this happened 4 days ago. It's the trail is becoming cold. Halas has his work cut out for him. So the characters have been placed in this situation. They have been surrounded by some other tables with some interesting individuals there, and I am using my my mechanic where I take out some special NPCs, highlight them, and I've currently got, in addition to Halas, who's at this table here, has got the grey pawn, I have the remnants of Party B, which is currently headed up by Malo. He's taken command. And they are discussing their options. They seem to be quite disgruntled with the situation. They have agreed to maybe have another venture towards Darkwater Lake. They have the advantage that they know where it is. They are familiar with it. They also know what the pitfalls are. Malar is a testament to that. They could maybe launch an assault on the temple and penetrate its defenses and take away potentially some loot. So they're quite keen to do that. They might need a bit of help to do that, so they might be in the game for looking for another recruit. But they're currently they're really kind of twiddling their thumbs a bit. They had been waiting for Mala to recover, and this is his first night out, so they're kind of in a little celebration. And then we have an interesting group here. We have our old friend Baldur. I'll call him friend, but he is an associate of ours from the beginning of our stint in the Green Dragon, where we had an interaction with him. It hadn't really gone anywhere. He had been looking for recruits, which he seemed to have got elsewhere in the meantime. But we had been left with maybe a poor sense of what he was like There was just a deep innate feeling, especially with Dagobert, that he just did not really like Baldur, and this has maybe been compounded by Baldur's behaviour ever since, where he usually gives us a scowl or he makes some quip, or he's just generally chaotic neutral, which is rather unpleasant at times, particularly for our pristine lawful neutral cleric Dagobert. And he has now made an associate of two very interesting characters, a rakish, rather quite a handsome but rather menacing looking figure called Klondike Bill, and I'm sure that's not his real name. We'll have to find out what that is, but maybe that's just his cover name. And his sidekick, Derry Ironheart, who is interestingly a dwarf. So, we do have another non-human in here. It's not just elves and half-elves that we have represented in the Green Dragon tonight. We do have a dwarf too. He's rather on the large side for a dwarf. And you could probably maybe cut back on his beers. But he doesn't really seem to be doing that tonight. So that's table 3. And then table 4, we have quite an enigmatic stranger making an appearance. A female, quite attractive. She has got quite a bit of charisma that seems to be emanating. We haven't really discerned yet. She's giving off a bit of an aura. She's probably entranced a couple of young men. There is a trader, who's this individual here, and a member of the recent patrol, who are jabbering away to her, and she is being very polite and is just really fielding their questions. She looks as though she really wants to be on her own, but yet that is one of the problems of being one of the few females in the Green Dragon, and particularly if she's attractive. So we've got a bit of the setup, and what I'm planning to do with this is to have Halas probably try to follow up this crime, but at the same time we're going to have some interactions with each of these tables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a priority for each table based on a D10 roll, and that will be the order that we do the interactions with the characters. So I am just going to do that first, and let's find out what order we're going to have our interactions with. So let's have number 1, and we'll have Halas as table 1. As table 2, we will have Party B. As table 3, we will have Baldur and Klondike Bill and Derry the Dwarf. And then on table 4, we have our enigmatic stranger, who is female. So, an interesting mix. Let's find out who we're going to be interacting with first. So let's get our D10 out, not our D8, which I usually do. So we'll get our D10. We'll find out who's going first. So Halas is going to roll. He's going to score. He's a 4. So he's maybe not going to be immediate on our list. Party B is a 6. So Party B are currently top, one of the first. If nothing higher than that, it's Party B first. Baldur is, oh dear, so Baldur's top so far, and our enigmatic stranger, we might not survive the Baldur reaction, and that's a 4-2. So I would say we're going to have a bit of a playoff between Halas and so we'll just have a D6 playoff, or shall we? No, maybe not. Let's just re-roll. So Halas as a sub check, he's a number 1, and our enigmatic stranger, unless she gets a 1, she gets an 8. So yeah. So in order of priority, we are going to have Baldur, and then Party B, and then our stranger, and then Hallas. So Hallas is leaving us to the end. Maybe he's not as suspicious of us. He does seem to be making his round. And every time that we have an interaction with the table, Hallas will be moving on to someone else. So we see Hallas wandering over towards Malor and the cleric, what was his name? Tibbet and Clothar. So we have Tibbet here, cleric of Ithrix. We have Clothar, who is a druid, and we have Malor, who is another druid, and currently the party leader. And he has a bit of a history with Tristan, that he doesn't really like him. We never knew why. I think it was some resemblance he had to someone back in the old world that he didn't really. He just took an instantaneous dislike to Tristan. So he's performing, he's got a bit of a conversation going, so we can't really discern what's going on because there's such a hubbub in the place. We can just see that he's interacting with them. Now we are sitting at this table just now, just minding our own business, enjoying ourselves, toasting to Adelind, welcoming her into the party. And what I propose to do for the interactions and get them started is to roll a d10. And what that means is if I roll a low score, that means it's more the characters that are going to start the interaction. And if I roll a high score, that means the NPC, in this case Baldur and his little band, will start the interaction. So let's roll a d10 and find out just exactly what the story is on those characters. So, an adamant Baldur is he is right in there. So, Baldur. Now we do know. Let's just get a bit of history about here. We do know that Baldur, he wants Darkslayer. He is in league with this individual, Klondike Bill, and Derry the Dwarf. Why is he in league with him? Why has he become an associate? Seymour hinted the fact that these two individuals have been here for a while, and they have been frequenting the Green Dragon, and they have struck up a friendship with Baldur. They seem to see eye to eye with him on several, maybe even philosophical levels. We don't really know the details, but they do seem to be basically getting on like a house on fire. Baldur is making a lot of noise. Klondike Bill is making a lot of noise. Derry is making a lot of noise. They are all basically almost drowning out the people round about them. But we do notice that everybody else is giving them a bit of a wide berth. It's like there's a bit of a cloud around them. That the other people are just thinking, we don't really fancy maybe just coming too close. So we do have a situation where Baldur is going to be quite up front, and maybe what Baldur does is he strides across, and he says, "Right, Dagobert, how are you lot faring this evening? Are you any more dungeons that you're going to plunder at my expense?" And Dagobert says, I don't quite understand what you're on about, Baldur. Have you had a bit too much Hawksmoor beer? And who are your buddies over here? And we do have a feeling that the other two individuals are just starting to move across and maybe line up behind Baldur. And the way I'm going to describe Klondike Bill, if you can imagine a tall, quite a rakish individual, quite good looking, but with a bit of a leer and a sneer. And I was thinking, who would be like an actor that would look like that? And it's probably, unfortunately he's deceased now, but Alan Rickman, the English actor, and he played some quite notorious villains. He's played that villain, the German villain in Die Hard. And he played, probably the one that I maybe model him most on is the Sheriff of Nottingham in the Kevin Costner Robin Hood. And maybe not at the farcical level, but the kind of the sneery, quite charismatic type of individual. that's really kind of what I'm modelling him on. He's maybe got a bit more of a kind of a bit of a scar down the cheek and all that kind of stuff. He looks as though he's been round the block a few times. And then Derry is this his kind of loyal sidekick that just kind of goes everywhere with him. So they're kind of muscling in on us. Uh, and Dagobert thinks, well, I better kind of diffuse the situation. And also Adeline's saying, oh, come on, Bowser. We're moving on now. That's all in the past. It's what's your gripe? And who are these interesting fellows that you've got? Maybe we could buy them a nice drink. And for the first time, Klondike Bill speaks. And he says, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I fancy a Hawksmoor beer. Are you proposing to get me one? Um, and and Adeline looks rather down her nose and says, well, I did say I would. And she kind of looks behind her and she sees Seymour, catches his eye and says, Seymour, would you care to buy these gentlemen drinks? And he says, oh, yep, sure, I'll do that. So temporarily, they seem to be assuaged by the situation. So I think what I'm going to do is really just to try and discern just what the overall tempo of this interaction is. I do know that for these three characters, I do have a bit of back history, and as a solo role player, I should be aware of that, and I think that should be part of this overall dynamic. And I'm quite happy to share that information with you now. But it might not be any surprise to hear that Klondike Bill and Derry Ironheart were part of that robber group that did that heinous act. And what they have done is that they are actually posing as mercenaries for hire in the town. But what they have done under the disguise of this is to locate a known fence in Marchton, and basically get rid of any of the items that they had looted and plundered from the pilgrims and the paladin, and most importantly, try to find a buyer for the relic that they had taken. Now, I'm modelling Klondike Bill and Derry a bit like their little gang have split up after this heist. And they are a bit like, you remember the film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Well, their little gang is a bit like the Hole in the Wall gang. And there might be a chance that they are linked to the outlaws that we discovered in that rumour that hang around the Barrow Downs out there near Wayford. But potentially they're just an offshoot of that. And they have their own little gang. And what they've done is they basically said, right, we'll split up and meet again in 30 days at our rendezvous spot, which is a secret. But in the meantime, what I will do, because Klondike Bill speaking as the leader, I will go with Derry and we will fence this loot and get some monetary value for it and bring it back, and we will split it up between us. And the rest of his gang, who have been well rewarded in the past and trust Klondike Bill, although many wouldn't, they agreed to this situation. So that's really kind of their backstory. They are aware that this individual Halas is on the prowl, but they feel that they've got enough brass, they've got enough of a cover story, enough ability to explain themselves, that they have nothing to worry about. And anyway, as a final if they do feel that they're under pressure, they can just leave, and they do have a bolt hole in the village. They're staying with a corrupt villager who is a known associate of this fence. It's a bit like your Fagin kind of setup with potentially you have thieves everywhere, and Marchton is no exception. They have thieves too. So I think initially what Adeline and Dagobert have skillfully done is maybe diffuse the situation. They've managed to give Baldor and Klondike Bill and Derry some refreshment. I think we maybe just tone that one down just now. What I will do is just to give a kind of an overall feel for the situation is to do a high level roll on the reaction with no real modifiers, but just to give an overall feel and just to see whether the gods agree with my assessment that they have calmed down. So this is like the reaction of Baldor and his associates. They get a 79, so that looks as though it does confirm my assumption. And it's nice to get confirmation of things with the dice and try not to contrive, because I suppose the whole thing with this this little mini game, it is effectively me just basically creating interactions. However, I'm trying to use the dice to modify it as much as possible and think of the likely interpretation of those actions and those dice rolls. So 79 means friendly immediate action. So yeah, we do have a very positive thing. I wouldn't say that these guys are our friends, because we do know that Baldor has an agenda. He is after Darkslayer at some stage, but he's not going to try that on just now. I think what they've really done, they had a bit of an idea just to kind of come over and probe us out and see whether we were up for anything. And they have been, well, not put back in their box, but they have been quite surprised that we were quite so conciliatory. And Adelind was very skillful in her dealing with these individuals. So again, we've got Adelind to thank for her mature, level-headed thinking. She managed to get the pesky males back in their boxes, and they are over drinking their Hawksmoor. Seymour comes over and gives them their beers, and you can see Klondike Bill raise his glass and give a bit of a wink, a wink over to them. You don't really know what he means by that, and it's almost like he's just have a bit of a cheek. So I would say that is our first interaction taken care of. So on the next one, we are going to have party B, and we go through the same process where I'll roll a d10, and we'll say that what Hallis has done, he has finished his conversation while all this was going on. He has eyes in the back of his head, and he probably saw. He can see everything. He's perceptive. Probably the only person that he hasn't really been able to fathom is this individual here, who is the stranger. But basically everybody's in the same boat with the stranger. But he has seen the interaction going on, just as as I say, eyes in the back of his head. And he thinks, well, I think I'll just follow up and maybe ask a few probing questions of these individuals. So he comes up over here, and he gets out the way of Seymour, who is doing a bit of bouncing over. Maybe Seymour tries to move over this side, and Martha decides to come over this side and busy herself, and she's going to pester these individuals. Maybe we just need to get Martha out of the way a bit, because we are going to interact with them. So let's get our d10 on the go and find out what the story is, and see whether, remember, if it's a low result, it's going to be the characters that are going to start the interaction, and if it's a high roll, it's going to be the NPCs. So again, we get a 6. So it's probably something along the lines of what Mallow does is he maybe looks across at Adelind and he says, can we just have a quick conversation, Adelind? And Adelind says, could you just excuse me for a minute? I'm just going to go over and have a word with my ex-colleagues. And Arian says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come, because I have not been introduced to these fine fellows. And she says, well, that's a good idea. Why don't you come along? So the two of us trot across here. We get out of the way of Martha, who's just being maybe she comes over and pesters us at our table. She says, are you enjoying yourself tonight? I can remember when I was a young thing, and Green Dragon used to every night was like this. I don't know what's happened these days, and she's kind of moaning away. And Dagobert's rolling his eyes, and Tristan says, "Look, Martha, could you go and maybe get us some more beers? I'm really feeling in the mood tonight." And she says, "Okay, I'll do that." So she heads off, and she says, "I'll have a word with my husband." That's always nice. And so in the meantime, we do have a conversation with him. And Mallow says that, look, I just want to make sure that there's no hard feelings between us, and just get the things clear. I've been holed up in my room for a while. I haven't really been able to get down to the Green Dragon. I've had a chance to reflect, and we've agreed to form a little party together. It's sad that we've lost you, Adelind, but you seem to have moved on to pastures new. We hold, it is within our belief as druids that we do not hold grudges, and we'll just let bygones be bygones. So we just wanted to make that clear. And Adeline says, "Well, that's very kind of you, Mallow. I do appreciate that. Let me introduce my ranger friend. And maybe you've come across him in the wild." And I said, "No, we haven't seen him." And Arina has exchanged pleasantries, and we do seem to strike up a bit of a rapport. I'd probably just roll a kind of overall confirmation thing, unless one of the individuals there thinks otherwise. If we get a positive, we're cooking on gas for them. So we get, oh dear, we get a 1. We don't. So something has happened. Let me see. Maybe Cloth. Let's say that Clothar, he doesn't like. Maybe he is holding a bit of a grudge, and he doesn't really like the fact that this party has shrunk, and he feels a bit of enmity, and he just can't help it. And he's had a few drinks, and he says, "Look, Mallow, I don't agree with you. I feel quite hurt by what's happened. I don't think that's been a good thing." And Adeline says, "Look, I'm really sorry that is the case. We've tried our best to kind of part on good terms. Is there anything that we can offer as an olive branch?" And he says, "Well, why don't you help us see if we can locate some more individuals for us to beef up our party? We still want to carry on doing adventuring." And she says, "All right, okay, well, that sounds fair. We are starting to get a bit of a presence in the Green Dragon and Marchton. I'll do my level best to try and see whether we can have any contacts that we can use. I think the patron that the Dagobert uses, Jasper, he seems to be quite an influential person. And also the fact that I believe that they've been introduced to Lord Seaward, and they seem to have been taken into his confidence. Maybe I could ask them whether they could do you a favour. And then I think maybe we have settled our debt, and we can move on, and we could be potentially allies in the future. And let's just see whether that is that sounds like a reasonable thing to me. I'm convinced by Adelind already, but let's see whether Clothar takes it that way. So he gets an 18, so he's a bit better, but he's not really. He says, "Well, I think the proof is in the pudding. If you can come back to us in a few days." Mallow's quite surprised, and also Tristan, not Tristan, Tibert, who is for once is lost for words. They're kind of blustering away. So look, Adeline, don't worry. But Clothar is quite adamant. He says, "Look, I think we need to take something from this, and if you can give us something tangible, we can say, well, we can part on good terms." And Adeline finally says, "Yes, okay, that I agree. Let us hook up. Where we are. We'll hook up later on in the week." So we kind of retire back to our table. We don't really feel that we've had much of a success with that party, apart from the fact that what we try to do is guarantee them some help in the future. If we do this, we might be able to cement quite a firm alliance. We know that the other two individuals are quite up for that type of thing, and Mal's been very forgiving. So I think overall we've probably been winners on that. But we just need to convince Clothar that is the case. And there's no point having an enemy in the Green Dragon Inn, and we've already got a potential one with with Baldur, and in the meantime, Halas. And I have a little mechanic where Halas is either good cop or bad cop for each interaction. So let's find out whether he's good cop. Good cop's 1 to 3, and bad cop's 4 to 6. So he is really going in. You know, he probably knows how to deal with these. He's not going to be kind and persuasive. He's just going to come straight in and do the kind of typical police thing in the interrogation in the cell, in the interview room, and he says, "I know where you look like a bit of a villain to me," and he's doing all that kind of stuff and kind of squaring up to them. And probably Seymour has been alerted. He's coming over. It's just a containment policy. But Halas, he's a skilled operator. He won't take it too far. He's just trying to be a bit intimidating. So we know that this is generally not kicking off, but it's certainly quite a spicy conversation that's been going on there. Okay, so we are down to we've had two interviews, 2 encounters, 2 interactions. We've had Baldur and Klondike Bill and Derry the Dwarf. We've had Party B of Malor, I keep calling it Tristan, Father Tibbet, and Clothar. And now we've got our third one, which is the Stranger. So that's an interesting prospect for us to contemplate. So I would say that instead of who is Halas got to go to? He was planning to go over to the Stranger. So let's just say that he's still with these individuals just now, and let's see how this interaction kicks off. So we get our D10 again, and we'll just take that D6 out. And let's find out how this interaction sparks. So we have a 2. So we have our characters seem to be quite keen to have a word with the Stranger. So let's maybe just go back to the original points that I was making about Adeline and Anarion, and they seem to be doing the donkey work of interactions so far, but that's just the way it works out. I think maybe Lindris, Tristan, and Dagobert need a bit of a rest for a while, and let's put on our other 2 new characters through the paces. And Adeline says, Anarion, look, I'm quite keen to have a word with this individual over there. She looks very interesting. Maybe she has she comes from the kingdom. Maybe she has some news of my family. It depends where she hails from. I'd quite like to find out. And Anarion says, yeah, for obvious, I quite fancy coming with you too, Adeline. Yeah, I think she looks like a very interesting person to talk to. And Anarion's only too happy to chaperone Adeline as almost like his a man in waiting to the noble lady. And Adeline has this ability to just glide through society because of her noble background, and she finds this very easy to come up and make herself make her presence known. And she comes up to the table, and the other 2 individuals kind of look up, and they think they realize that they are in the presence of nobility, and maybe they're kind of more reserved with their conversation. And she says, "Oh, I am pleased to meet you. My name is Adeline Winterthorn, and this is my associate and party member, Anarion Emberheart. He is a ranger of the north. We could not help but see you across the way. We hadn't noticed you before in the Green Dragon, and we were interested to see whether you would like some form of beverage or something, and maybe we could have a conversation. I am wanting to discern whether you are from my homeland, and you might know of my family. They are quite a family in the capital." So we do have an interaction on the go here. So what I'm going to do is introduce the enigmatic Stranger. And I think the way I want you to visualize this individual is, let's let her introduce herself. And she says, and she says, she says to the other two, could you maybe excuse us for a second? Your conversation has been enthralling, and I'm dying to talk to you later. And they say, oh yes, of course, madam. Yeah, and these two decide to just not vacate the premises, but head away up to the bar. So they're out of the equation. They feel like maybe they're just outstayed their welcome a bit. They got the hint. And our two characters just kind of plump themselves down with the stranger. And she says, yeah, my name is Berethiel. I am a scholar from the capital, Doriath. I have been sent out by my patrons, the law masters of the university there, and my role in this area is really to find out information about the history, any details of the relics. I'm particularly interested in old imperial items. And I believe, I've already heard that your parties, or some of your parties, have been exploring areas that had imperial activities in the past. I find this a very interesting subject. And I think the way she comes across she is very charming. Her clothing is quite extraordinary. I think I mentioned it. It wasn't quite alluring, but what it is it's like a female ranger's clothing, but a very, very dark material. It's almost as dark as so it's dark blues and dark greens, but the darkest green, the darkest blue, almost black, and she's covered in these, and her charisma is, I've decided to basically make her charisma a minimum of 14 and add 1d4. So we're talking about someone that is very charismatic as a base thing. So let's just work out exactly what her charisma is. So she's got a charisma of 17. So she is really, I think she's the same as Kayla, our female magic user. So she is giving off quite an aura. She is very, as I say, very charming. She is very eloquent, articulate. She basically gives us quite a bit of information about herself, and she seems very probing in some of her questions about what we've been doing. So this is going on for quite some time. And I thought, well, wouldn't there be an interesting thing if if a character, an NPC, is actually making the conversation with our characters, and our characters have a reaction to it. So I think I'm going to do what is known as a reverse reaction roll, my first ever in the game, and actually get the characters' reaction and see whether they think that this individual is amazing. So I'll just get my player's handbook out, and I will do a high level based on a charisma of 17, and see what the reaction adjustment is for that. Now, a charisma of 17, she is going to get a plus 30. So let's just roll a 1d100 and add 30 onto it and see what we get. So are we falling for her charm? So 56, and that plus 30, that's 86. So according to our little table, now the reason I'm doing this, I have a bit of an ulterior motive. 86. Friendly, immediate action. So, yeah, our characters have been charmed by her. And what I am proposing, I think what I want to do maybe first is just to give, apart from her physical description, the way I have visualized her as for, just for maybe an easier visualization in your head. If you take like the actress, I think the one I was thinking of was the actress Eva Green, who is a French actress, and she's a very striking, beautiful woman. But there is something almost I don't know, there's a slight element of menace with her look. I think she's got a kind of, not evil or anything like that, she just has a bit of a kind of look about her, and she can play villains, quite convincingly. And I would say that this character, uh, Beruthiel, is has that kind of aura about her. She is quite beautiful, but she has also got a hint of menace about her, which these characters have not been able to pick up because they are quite entranced by our conversation. And the other kind of layers that I want to try and bring on is that instead of she really kind of got a bit of a cover story. She is here for an alternative mission. So the characters have basically failed their first test. They have been lured into her charms, and I think what I can do is maybe bring the other characters in, and Dagobert thinking, well, they seem to be getting on like a house on fire with this individual over there. I wonder if we should come across and maybe have a bit of a chat too. She seems like a very interesting person. Instead of just staying here and twiddling our thumbs, maybe our conversations run out a bit. So Dagobert says, "All right, okay, let's go over." And Dagobert comes over and he said, who is your new friend? You seem to be getting on very well." Rika's come piling in to the, and Adlin's does all the introductions, and we get Beruthiel explaining, maybe just on a high kind of level, a quick kind of recap, and Adlin can help out. She just says we find that Beruthiel's got a very interesting background. She seems to know a lot about the region. She's doing some deep research out here. She seems particularly interested in imperial things and things to do with old relics and temples and that type of stuff. She seems to be aware of the fact that we have been down Domona, and also the fact that we are interested in other expeditions, and the fact that these are my old party had been over at the island on the dark water. So let's see whether with her conversation continuing, she can keep the cover story about going. So let's roll the D100. We get 71 plus. So yeah. So our characters are quite enamored by her. Anarian is kind of looking on with his eyes wide, and he seems to be quite entranced by her. She does recognize the fact that he's got a very high charisma too, and but she seems to be quite inscrutable the way she's reacting. I have got a bit of a story for Beruthiel. I am positing that she is actually she is an agent of Varol, Lord of Shadows, and she is a member of the Hidden Eye Brotherhood. And this is a group that almost operates as a cult. After the Empire fell, the remnants of the imperial civilization and nobility and the magic users and witches and necromancers, they all went into the wilds, and over that time they have been able to galvanize themselves into what is called the Hidden Eye Brotherhood. And they have an agenda in the Northern Marches, which is to counter this progress of Bane, of Alaron, of all the lawful pantheon, and they are in direct opposition. And one of the things they are interested in is actually intercepting any items that come out of imperial locations. So they don't have the power themselves to do specific dungeon adventures, but they are very interested in some of the items that come out. So she is making quite a few almost the characters haven't picked up on this, but she is making some quite detailed questions, asking some quite detailed questions on what they would did down Dunmorna, and kind of explaining that in a bit more detail, under the guise that she is just doing a bit of research and she needs to find this information. She finds this information very useful for her her law masters back in Doriath, the capital. The characters are doing her a big favor, and she's very appreciative. So I think the characters have basically they haven't picked up on the fact that she has a different persona underneath, and she is so skilled at what she does as one of the premier agents of the Brotherhood, that she is able, as this agent, to convince our characters otherwise. So I think at the end of that conversation, it just basically the characters say, "Look, we have maybe overstayed our welcome. You're obviously been traveling. You're tired. What we will do is we will just return to our table and continue." And she says, "Yes, well, thank you very much, Dagobert and Adeland. I do feel a bit weary, and really what I was just after was maybe a bit of peace and quiet at this table." And they say, "Well, maybe you shouldn't choose Saturday night to do it, because it is a bit notorious in the Green Dragon." And then we see Fredegar come across, and he says, "Oh, is there any are you enjoying your time in the Green Dragon?" And she says, "Well, actually, I could do with a bit of quiet. I might actually just retire to my I am staying with a friend in Marchton. I think I will actually leave this evening." And just then, Halas is walking across, and he says, "Oh, I overheard that you were just about to leave. Can I maybe just ask you some questions before you leave?" So she says, and you can see a little bit of a flicker in her eyes, but she is so good at disguising her intentions that she immediately launches into maximum charm offensive, and they seem to be involved in quite an intense conversation. So that is the end of that interaction. I reckon we've only got one left. And what you can see, I suppose, we've kind of built up a bit of a picture that we've got the overall crime happening. We do have the suspects here. However, it doesn't look as though our characters have twigged. Has Hallis twigged? Has he got information? There's not much he can do on the spot. We're just assuming that maybe these two characters are still unknown in the situation, and then we've got this rather malevolent force that has just appeared in the Green Dragon, and is this happening across the region? Is effectively agents of this Varel, the Dark Force, in other establishments doing similar type of deep research? I'm assuming that Berithiel is the primary agent. She is they're almost like their James Bond type individual. She is the premier. But there are going to be maybe other agents, and the fact that she's got a safe house in Marchton, and all this type of stuff that Dagobert's going to be doing on Holy Day, searching out corruption. They don't really seem to be doing a fantastic job in Marchton, if there is a safe house for basically lawful evil and this cult that's an underground cult. So that's quite an intriguing prospect, and we have another interesting NPC that we can add in. And hopefully the way that it's come in, I've kind of, I suppose I've introduced it through a mini game, but I felt that maybe we just needed a kind of a bit of menace in the campaign, and I did hint probably about 30 episodes ago, it does sound like a lot, that I would have this corruption starting to grow, and I wanted catalysts to get it going, and I also need some agents. So I think that this hidden brotherhood is a very interesting way of introducing quite a potent threat that could be quite mischievous, not in the form of having legions and legions of troops, but in its kind of its counterinsurgency, its black ops type operations. And this is maybe just right up Jasper's street, because Jasper is in charge of this counterinsurgency operation. He's probably aware of the hidden Eye Brotherhood, but the rest of the Green Dragon is oblivious. Maybe Hallis will, will get the cues. So let's just quickly find out whether Hallis does the good cop, bad cop with Beruthiel. And I've actually deliberately chosen Beruthiel, the name, because I was looking up, I was quite intrigued with the concept of black Numenorians. And I suppose one of the major advocates of that is the Mouth of Sauron. But black Numenorians were quite prominent in the history of Middle-earth in the Third Age. And the majority of them ended up in in Umbar. They were the Corsairs, but also some of the maybe some of the humans that turned into Ringwraiths. Maybe they were black Numenorians. And Beruthiel is a name, or a female name, from is a black Numenorian. So I thought, oh, what an excellent name to use for probably a very dark type of person. So is Halas going to be good cop on Beruthiel or bad? He is good cop, so he is going to do a similar charm offensive. So there is charm against charm there, but he is still going to ask some pertinent questions, and we're expecting Beruthiel to be able to answer these. She is skilled in that kind of activity. Okay, so where are we? I would say that we've had all our major interactions, apart from Hallis coming to interrogate us. We have not had a conversation with Hallis yet. I don't think anything, I was not really expecting anything to maybe kick off. I was maybe more expecting some intrigue and some potential menace growing. I think I've maybe generated that with this rather enigmatic individual here. She has been able to convince and almost cast her black spell over the Green Dragon. She will be able to leave this, if based on the fact that she is able to convince Hallis, she'll be able to leave this environment with no concerns and no suspicion, which is, as far as she's concerned, a very positive thing. But at the same time, from an information point of view, she has been able to suck in all the details that the party had given about Dunmorna, all the items that they had taken out, all the individual monsters that they had come across, the fact that Callistra had been doing experimentation with spiders. The characters were quite keen. So we had quite an intense and extensive conversation. And she also particularly is interested in the fact that we are going to this temple in the middle of Darkwater Lake. So as an agent, and the fact that the cult operates in that region, and that's where their headquarters is, this is all putting them onto a high alert situation. So there are other forces gathering that the characters are not aware of. So that will be up to me as a solo player to weave that into the tapestry of this campaign. Hopefully, what I'm going to do is I'll reset the situation at the start of the next episode and get the final interaction with Hallas, and maybe get a download on what's happened with Beruthiel. The rest of the characters, we're not really expecting any more things, unless Klondike Bill and Derry start kicking off. Baldur is always a bit of a loose cannon. Anything could happen. Maybe I could just throw a grenade in at the end of the session and see whether they do anything. But I've enjoyed that. It's been quite intense. Hopefully you've been able to get some enjoyment out of that too. And just see that a lot of these interactions that you can do, if you've got the dice to modify them, and you can come up with some reasonable interpretations of those, and the fact that we've got so many moving parts here, It does just spark these ideas. I did have a few set agendas that were already there, but they've been heavily modified by what's been going on. We're not really quite sure where they're going to go from here and what they think of the characters. We do know what Baruthiel is thinking about the characters, the fact that she's been able to convince them that she is not what she seems. And then we've got this potential, maybe we could get some form of truce with this party. We have to go through a few more hoops, so we're going to help Clotho out with the recruitment side, but we do have a bit of influence at the keep. So all these things are bubbling away that I can deal with going forward. And probably the next thing, we'll get into Holy Day tomorrow, and we'll start doing our planning for Darkwater Lake. So service will be resumed, but I just thought it'd be quite fun to do a little mini game, and just I haven't really done one of them for a wee while. So yeah. Well, as I say, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. And I'll join you in the Green Dragon for the next episode. Thanks for watching.